Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Kelly Young Voter Report brought to you by the Progressive Democrats of Benicia. Today we have with us Bart Sullivan and Terry Scott, and we're here today to talk about affordable housing. Now, Bart, Terry, you have both been big advocates for affordable housing in the Benicia community. Would you like to go further into detail on your
Absolutely.
endeavors?
Absolutely. If I may start, I wanted to frame this a bit um, because I think there's a lot of misnomers going on about what affordable housing is and
Mhm.
what the issue really is. The issue isn't so much affordable housing as is accessibility to a particular living area.
Mhm.
So, matter of fact, my research I've been doing has shown that there's a lot of groups. There's veterans, seniors. It's a whole array of different groups of people um, really can't get into live in a certain areas. They have to basically move away or find ways to live with other people or do whatever they have to do in order to live in a particular area they want to live in. And so we're looking at not so much affordable housing as the term, but maybe frame it more like accessibility.
Mhm.
In fact, the group we started, we've kind of nicknamed it for the moment until we formalize it, I guess. But Access Benicia,
So
and
redefining the conversation, basically.
yeah, redefining the conversation into what's the real issue. The issue is helping people of all ages find ways to live in this particular area.
And let me add to what Bart has said is that there is a genuine need to be able to support the professionals in our community, the moderate income members of our community, and the low income members of our community. And right now, the city has been unable to step up and provide that support. And as an example, under the state's mandate of providing affordable housing, they have a thing called a average mean income. And when you look at that, that is about 120% of the community's mean income. And Benicia has a significant, fairly high mean income, and that's $90,000. So if you take 120% of that, you're looking at a wage earner or a family income of well in excess of $100,000. Yet this is where firemen and policemen and nurses and teachers and members of our community who work in our community don't have access to the ability to live in that community because there's just no housing. As an example, my children are millennials. They're just starting out with having children. They want to live in a good community with a good school system. And unfortunately, they could not afford to live in this community because the housing costs are so high. So
Mhm.
when Bart talks about access, we're trying to find ways to slice that pie to make sure that there's all levels, all three of those levels, moderate, middle, and low income people being served by the
Mhm.
community. In addition to that, there's another group. And when you look at specifically Benicia and you see that approximately 30% of the population is over 55, they're now starting to age into the silver tsunami, getting older. And as they age, where are they going? Where are they going to go to? We don't have enough housing to be able to provide single floor housing within walkable distance to the downtown so that they can serve their needs. And we have a lot of condos on the water that are owned by this market, but they're all 2 level, 3 level. They just can't navigate that kind of construction. So we're saying that what we're proposing is we're proposing to do a multiple use facility that addresses seniors, addresses moderate income, addresses low income, all that brings in and holds on to people in our community to give them that chance at that first start.
Mhm. And I guess another thing to ask is how much of the issue with the cost of housing in Benicia is related to the greater Bay Area's housing cost crisis, and how much would you say is sort of a local problem with access to housing?
I'll jump on that one. There's actually two forces going on in this whole endeavor about housing prices. So you got the people like me and Terry that we own our homes. We're kind of set. We got our retirements all set up, our 401ks, whatever. And essentially, we don't want things to change. We want to keep things going. Matter of fact, we want our housing prices to rise, right? Because it's
right.
our part of our mix of our retirement. The other the other side of the coin is my nephew. Maybe you, Andy.
Hmm.
But where are you going to live? How are you going to be able to get into, say, you want to live in Benicia? How would you do it? Well, even the rents are really high. So you
Right,
have to come in at a pretty high level just to get into the market to find an access point. So it's a Bay Area problem. My nephew just bought a house in Berkeley, I think for 200. I don't know the exact price, but I'm going to guess around 260 or $70,000.
hmm
I don't know how he did it. He makes good money. He works for a corporation, but he barely made it over the line to a little 800 square foot condo, basically in downtown Berkeley. Great little condo. So that's what we're saying is those two forces. The problem is, and we address the problem, the force that wants things not to change and to increase everything is kind of causing the other force to be have problems not being able to advocate for themselves to a point where they can make some access points.
right.
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, we're kind of, and I hate to say it, but we're kind of slowly filtering to a Rossmore. At some point, we're going to
Right.
be a Rossmore with no schools, maybe one school, and that's it. And I know people say, that'll never happen. Well, look, we've already lost Mills Elementary. That's already gone.
Right.
How many more schools are we going to lose before we end up with just one elementary, one high school? And maybe not even that. Maybe we have to lose that as well at some point without we don't have enough population of children.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and to jump a little bit on what Bart said, and I'm in total agreement with what Bart said, is that we can't affect the Bay, but this group can affect Benicia, and that is really our charge. And eventually, hopefully, we can create a model that can be expanded to throughout the Bay. But the Bay is the price of housing is, as I indicated earlier, we can't control that. But what we can do is we can look at how we can do development, whether it's subsidized with the city or not, how we can create development within the city that can address that affordability index and call it, as Bart has pointed out, something like Access Benicia, which takes away that kind of stigma of, oh, this is Section 8 housing, and then you get that's some undesirable. Well, of course that's not undesirable, and Section 8 housing is not undesirable. It's providing a need, and what we're saying is let's continue to address that need, because eventually the state is going to mandate it. They are in the process of mandating numbers of affordable housing units. So let's get ahead of it. Let's be a center for it, and let's expand it.
Set an example, basically.
Let's just set the example, set the trend, get things going. Matter of fact, this isn't just housing, by the way, it's also business. And we want to reach out to the business community because I was listening to the One House Bakery CEO, or the owner of it, and it was impressive that they had to, I think, buy the building, and they went through a lot of work to make a business start on First Street. And this isn't the first time I've heard people say the rents are too high. And matter of fact, the rents I've heard, and I don't know, Terry, if you have any knowledge of rents, or you do, Andrew, maybe you have some, but like Southampton Shopping Center, I mean, the rents are not set by local rent; they're set by the Bay Area or some group outside of California is setting the rents, whatever best they can get. So what does that do? Well, that drives businesses that can only afford those rents, which may not be the businesses we want. And maybe we don't want 47 mortgage brokers in one location
It may
or
not
whatever.
even be businesses from, Benicia, right?
Right. It could
I
be
mean,
corporate businesses or whatever.
right. You look at, for example, restaurants, right? You want something that isn't, fast food or a quick bite to eat. You got to go either downtown or the shopping center on Columbus, right?
Right.
It's sort of definitely bottlenecking the business community of Benicia as well. The cost of renting a building,
Right.
or
And to
for that
that
matter, owning one.
And to that need, we see this opportunity that we're pursuing is being so multi-leveled and multifaceted that it generates income that covers a lot of the costs of and the impact on infrastructure, et cetera. As an example, the concept that Bart and I are talking about has mixed use on the first floor. So we have retail. We have potentially a restaurant. We also are looking at integrating a performing arts center on the top of one of the buildings with a rooftop bar. The second building and that building would be considered affordable housing. And the second building, connected by a sky bridge, would be the opportunity to deal with and handle senior needs. What seniors want is they want to age in place, as we know, and they want single floor living.
Mm-hmm.
And it is fascinating that in a community with about 10,000 housing structures, that only 6% of those housing structures are single floor houses.
Mm-hmm.
So it limits the ability to keep that second generation or third generation Venetian who wants to age in place. And there's an interesting phenomenon that's going on. As a futurist demographer, basically a cultural anthropologist, I suppose, there is something that is happening up in Water's End as an example, and I'm starting to see it creeping into the Southampton area. And I can't quantify it yet, but I'm seeing this trend of people who have bought those very large homes in Southampton and Water's End struggled during the pandemic. And what had happened is there's become a slight merger and expansion of the nuclear family, where the parents of the children who own it, the grown children who own it, who have kids, so their grandkids are moving in because the houses are so big. They're building they're converting the downstairs bedroom into a little in-law suite, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that is changing a bit of the community profile. And so what's happening is in our culture, we have this incredible chaos that surrounds us at any given moment. And out of this chaos starts to spin social change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're starting to see a little bit of that. And one of the things that we are talking about as we support the senior living, single floor, single living in the downtown area is businesses will come to support that. And imagine if we had 35 or 40 suites, small suites in that building, 2 people. So, by the time we're done, we have the possibility, Barton, correct me if I'm wrong, but potentially with families and everything in this proposal that we're looking at, as one of many that could be within the community, 125, 130 people. Now you're starting to build this walkable, livable downtown area, and more businesses will come in to meet the needs of that community. So I'm not going to say if you build it, they will come, but I will say that if you build it, their needs will become apparent and business will react to it. So it will be generating tax revenue. There'll be the potential of collaborating with Soltrans and finding ways to bring in some sort of transportation network so we can get people onto a bus and up the street or out to Vallejo, et cetera. So there's all sorts of opportunities here as we look at this thing called affordable housing.
Indeed. Oh, were you going to say something, Bart?
I was gonna say, and one thing is we probably show the audience one of the things we're talking about is just the general development of Benicia, but there's also the E Street development lot down by the yacht club, which is prime property down there. It needs some work. I've learned actually we're one of our goals in this group is we've been reaching out to some of the developers of that property, or could be developers of the property, people that are typically right now the city has to go to, because of the Surplus Land Act, the city has to go out to nonprofit developers first, and people that are in the nonprofit space for housing, like Habitat for Humanity, et cetera. And then when those people say no, for example, they go through the whole list, and it's about a list of about 300 different developers. After that list, then they can go to a private developer. Currently, the city council wants to build, you probably maybe mentioned this in other podcasts or somewhere else, but they want to build condos down there and maybe a 10% affordable housing as part of the developer's overall bid for the project, basically. The people I've spoken with so far, though, have said that the way that this situation works is there's funding available for, if the whole thing was affordable, can be classified affordable in some manner, whether it's military, senior, whatever the mix is, there is funding available for those segments from either from the government or private funding through REITs that are looking for tax credits. So there's lots of ways to do it. The question is, will the city allow that to occur? We're trying to build a coalition of people from all walks of life, including business, to help drive that to become an all affordable place.
And this was actually going to lead into my next question. What can the average citizen who wants housing in Benicia to remain accessible, or at least become accessible, do to ensure that it does?
Well, let me make a couple of thoughts about that. One is, go ahead and talk to the city council members. Go to city, email them, whatever you have to do, and say you would like to have accessible housing, especially starting off with, let's work on the East Street lot development as a model for this, for how to do this and make our city a model for other communities. Just that constant, email concern, much like we did for other, like the crude by rail, things like that the city really cares about. We can start going down that road. Now, does that mean we're going to get resistance? Of course we'll get resistance, but that's fine, because we're not trying to preclude business. Matter of fact, we want to enhance business. We want to enhance the community. That's the whole idea. It's not just we're trying to bring in affordable housing. We really want it to work for both sides, including business owners. So that would,
and I would echo what Bart says is city council right now in their 4-1 decision to move forward with market rate housing on that East Street lot, instead of looking at it from an affordable perspective. The constituents need to be able to come and step up and start to say, no, what we really would like to see on that spot or in other spots within the city is ways to build affordable housing. Yes, market rate is the easy way. Market rate, when you bring in a developer to get $600,000 for a condo, is the easiest way to go. Let's let Benicia become, as Bart said, become a model, an opportunity to show what a public-private partnership can do, and work that way. But the only way that that's going to happen is if the community steps up and applies pressure by contacting the council member, by contacting the mayor, by participating in the meetings, because there will be further discussions about East Street as that really starts to talk about development and they put together their RFQ and RFPs for it. There's plenty of opportunity and time to do it, but they have to do it, as Bart said, in a similar fashion like crude by rail, where there is more than a few voices. It needs to be a loud voice. This is not a need, or this is an opportunity to speak up for all residents in the community, and that need help, and that we need to be able to reach out to those people.
And let me chime in on that a little bit, if you don't mind, Andrew. Unless you had another question, I wanted to reflect on that.
Go ahead.
The idea of this coalition of doing this is to please call me. People can look at my number. They can call me or email me or whatever. It's fine. I'm kind of the loose. I'm just kind of organizing the thing. Jerry and I are both working on this, so it's great. And he and I are kind of tag teaming this. The other thing is to realize that where we really are out to help the city, and in a sense, after I was at that meeting with the city council where they made that decision, and one thing I didn't get a chance to ask them was, okay, so they don't want rentals down there. Now here's the question: if a developer walks in and wants to buy the whole property and make it a rental unit, or how are they going to stop that? I mean, they can't. Yeah, they can't stop it. So it's like keeping rental out of the idea seems a little absurd, because it's the content of what you're trying to do and making it accessible. Rent is part of that whole, can be part of the equation.
And I guess my last question to you guys would be is, you guys mentioned resistance. Have you guys received any resistance from the general populace of Benicia to the idea of making housing more accessible? Or has it been?
I haven't personally. I haven't. All people I've talked to, and I've reached out to a number of folks. So far, everybody seems pretty positive. When I explain it, it's not just the Section 8 idea, whatever the myth is, not the myth, but
that stereotype.
It's really different than that. And really, I didn't understand that. They didn't think about it in context of maybe their grandparents want a place to go right in town.
Yeah, Bart hits on the key point. And that key point is educating our community on what affordable housing is. I too have not really gotten any pushback when I explain what we are meaning by affordable housing, that access to those people who are just starting out, those people who want to get into our community and live in our community, and the ability to provide housing for them. When you explain it, and when you take that 30 seconds, that 45-second, that elevator pitch, and you tell them what it really means, they get it. It's an aha moment. But when you say affordable housing, the first thing is Section 8. Well,
whatever, bad stuff.
Is separating that, and the only way that we're going to be able to separate that is educating the general population and educating the political infrastructure.
Andrew, I was going to say, back to your point of how they could help, it can also join us. That'd be great. We do need help, believe it or not. We need to delegate some tasks, like talking to developers, figuring out matter of fact, we'd like to get more people involved so we can kind of spread the workload out a little bit to help.
Would you like to drop any contact information just right here, right now on the podcast?
Yes. You can reach me at my email address as patenthelp@yahoo.com, patenthelp@yahoo.com. They can also reach me on my phone number, if that's okay, 707-853-6111. Happy to
absolutely
take calls.
And I'll let everybody call Bart.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I think this is a great issue you guys are drawing attention to. And in the future, I'd love to have you guys back on and see how things progress. And once again, thank you so much to the Progressive Democrats of Benicia for hosting our podcast. Thank you so much.
Sure. Hey, Andrew, One question, did I get my phone number in there correctly? Make sure I didn't.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great.